And we're going to continue with the 11th chapter of Many Waters by Madeleine L'Engle. The Nephilim gathered, proud, arrogant, flickering in and out of their hosts as they spoke. Rofocale the mosquito said, "I have put an illusion around the tent. It is on the edge of the desert at the farthest end of the oasis, but the illusion makes it look as though it is surrounded by flocks and groves." Eblis, the dragon lizard, asked, "Are the giant twins worth this much trouble?" Rofocale answered, "I think they know something we do not know. When I questioned the one that Tigla caught for me, he gave evasive answers." Uguiel the cobra said, "There is danger in the air. The stars are drawing back. I am concerned for my baby." Nama the vulture went, "Kk. We choose to be silent with El. We choose never to hear the voice again, never to speak with the presence." Ertriel the rat said, "We could ask the seraphim." "Never," said Estelle the cockroach. "But they still speak with El," Ertriel said. "The stars still talk with them." "I do not care to listen to the stars," Esheth the crocodile pronounced. "They might tell us," said Rumjel the red ant, "whether or not we are in danger." "How can we be in danger?" Eblis asked. "We are immortal." "And the one we caught," said Rofocale, "told me that he is mortal, if he is to be believed." Nama the vulture clacked his beak. "I smell that there will soon be much for us to eat." "How?" Rofocale demanded. "What is going to happen?" Eblis the dragon lizard asked. "Will someone tell me what Noah is building?" "A good question," said Rumiel the slug. Rofocale gave his screeching laugh. "Ha ha ha ha! A boat! That is what my Tigla tells me. He is building a boat." "A boat?" Esheth the crocodile demanded. "Why on earth would he build a boat?" Rugziel the worm asked, "Could the twin giants have told him something that we do not know?" Rofocale said, "We need to get rid of the twin giants. Everything has been different since they came. Noah reconciled with his father," said Nama the vulture. "And Lamech has died," Estelle the cockroach agreed. "My lovely Yalith prefers the young giants to me," Eblis said. "They must have some strange power to make her turn from me to such soft-skinned, wingless creatures." "And Noah is building a boat," Rofocale added. "And Matred weeps," said Rumjel the red ant. "We should find out," Uguiel suggested, "whether or not they, the young giants, are truly mortal or not." Rofocale screeched again. "Dah! Tigla's father and brother will find that out for us." Higayon finally found the tent where Sandy was imprisoned because the unicorn was there. Rofocale's power of illusion had indeed made the tent seem to be in the middle of the oasis, had indeed altered Sandy's scent, but the unicorn had come to the tent after the illusion was set. Higayon sniffed. He smelled silver, he smelled light. He nudged Japheth excitedly. Tentatively, Japheth pushed open the tent flap. Enough of the late afternoon light came through the tent hole, so that he could see Sandy and the unicorn, their hands together in affection. The abused mammoth was only a dark shadow under Sandy's arm. "Sand!" Sandy opened his eyes. "Jay!" The young man started to rush forward to embrace him, then stopped short, as though held by some invisible barrier. The unicorn's light brightened. Higayon followed Japheth into the tent, sitting back on his haunches in surprise when he saw the mammoth, who was pressed close against Sandy, blinking fearfully. Sandy's protective arm tightened. "It's all right. Nobody's going to hurt you, then. Jay, how did you find me?" "Are you all right?" Japheth asked anxiously. "I'm fine, but Tigla's father and brother want to kill me." "No!" Japheth touched his fingers to the tiny bow. "No, Sand." "And look what they've done to their mammoth," Sandy said indignantly. "They've nearly starved him, and they've broken his tusks." "All right," Japheth said hurriedly. "We'll take him with us, but we'd better get out of here before they come back." I think I'm safe as long as I'm with the unicorn, Sandy said, because they won't be able to come near. Japheth smiled. I can't either. He stared at the boy and unicorn. Sand, do you remember when I first met you in Den in the desert and we called the unicorns and the den went out? Of course I remember. Can't you go out with the unicorn now? Sandy sighed. The problem is, Jay, that I believe in the unicorn. The mangy mammoth suddenly pricked up his ears and started to whimper. Higayon pushed himself up onto his feet, and Japheth swung around to see the tent flap open violently. Two small, chunky men came in, carrying spears. Tigla's father and brother. "Ark! What have we here?" the older man demanded. "A unicorn!" the younger man exclaimed. "And one of Noah's sons! Well, well!" He moved towards Sandy and the unicorn, then drew back with a sharp intake of breath. "You, young giant!" he shouted. "Come along! We want you!" "Sorry," Sandy said. "You can't have me." He looked at Japheth and the two men from Tigla's tent, and wondered anew how small they were. Tigla's father was made even shorter by his bowed legs. No wonder they had used the poison dart on him. In a fair struggle, they would never have captured him. Japheth's pleasant features were distorted by anger. "You've done enough harm. Get out of here." The tent was so small that the three little men were close together, with Sandy, his arms still about the unicorn, and Mammoth near enough to draw back at the odor of the men from Tigla's tent. "Ox nuts to you," Tigla's brother said. Japheth glanced swiftly at Sandy. Then, in a reflex so swift it hardly seemed motion, he drew one of the darts from his quiver and jabbed it into Sandy's arm. The two men from Tigla's tent shouted in surprise and anger. Tigla's father roared, "What happened?" Where Sandy and the unicorn and Mammoth had been, there was only a pile of filthy skins. Japheth replied calmly, "They went out with the unicorn." Both men roared in frustration. "Call him back," the bow-legged man said, "or we'll kill you," the younger man threatened. "And what good will that do you?" Japheth demanded. "You'll never get the sand back without me." Tigla's brother snarled deep in his throat and lunged at Japheth with his spear, but Higayon jumped between them, tripping the red-bearded man so that he sprawled onto the floor of the tent. He snarled up at his father. "Why did you stop him?" "Me? What could I do?" "You let him go out with the unicorn, our mammoth too." Tigla's brother scrambled clumsily to his feet, hefting his spear. "Give us your father's vineyards, then." "No," Japheth said and reached for his darts. But the older man swooped on him with the spear, and despite Japheth's quick reflexes, the spear cut across his ribs, and a trickle of blood slid down his side. Higayon lunged at the man, trumpeting in outrage, but the two men with their spears were too much for Japheth and the mammoth. Japheth clutched his wounded side as the mammoth lunged again and was viciously kicked by Tigla's brother. Suddenly a roar burst over them. "Hungry!" And the manticore stuck his hideous face into the tent. "Hungry!" "Go away!" Tigla's father yelled. In terror, Higayon backed up, hitting the skins of the tent, which gave slightly. Japheth, trying to reach for the mammoth, saw that the skins were not pegged securely to the ground. Not many people bothered to set up their tents as well as Noah and Grandfather Lamech. "Run, Hig! Run!" Japheth commanded, and Higayon backed out of the tent. "Hungry!" The manticore's ugly face was followed by his lion's body and scorpion's tail. Japheth was the farthest of the three men from the tent flap. He reached for a dart and his tiny bow, and let a dart fly to strike the manticore in the forehead. "Hung!" The manticore started and fell unconscious on Tigla's father and brother. Swiftly, Japheth dropped to his knees and pushed out the opening in the rear of the tent through which Higayon had left. The mammoth was waiting outside, whimpering in terror, but not willing to leave Japheth completely. "Run!" Japheth shouted as he stood upright, and they ran without looking behind them, onto the desert. And then the illusion that Rofocale had set was broken, and Japheth knew exactly where they were. They were at the far end of the oasis, the opposite end from Grandfather Lamech's tent-hold. He hardly realized that blood was streaming down his side as he hurried toward home. Admael, the camel, Anaxiel, the giraffe, and Akatiel, the owl, left their posts and followed Japheth and the mammoth into the desert. Japheth, running faster than he had ever run before, suddenly felt dizzy. Everything paled. He slumped slowly onto the sand. Higayon pushed his feet against a rock to slow himself down. Akatiel flew down in the sand beside the young man and resumed his seraph form. "He has lost much blood. He is still bleeding." At Noctiel, the giraffe bent his neck to look at Japheth's wound and lowered himself so that he could reach the torn skin with his tongue. Carefully, thoroughly, he licked the wound. Admail the camel galloped off. Higgaion hunkered down beside Japheth and the giraffe, whimpering. At Noctiel continued to lick, cleaning the jagged spear cut. When it was clean, Admail returned with a furry-looking cactus-type leaf, which he gently pressed against the wound, holding it until the bleeding slowed and stopped. Japheth, quivering, opened his eyes to see the seraphim reaching up out of their hosts and into their seraphic forms. Acatriel, with eyes as wise as those of the owl he had just left, affirmed, "You are all right. You have lost much blood, and that spearhead cannot have been too clean. But Noctiel has washed the wound, and Admail has stopped the bleeding." And you ran much too quickly, Noctiel nodded. Higgaion touched Japheth's hand gently with his trunk tip. "Sand?" Noctiel asked. "What happened?" "I sent him out with the unicorn," Japheth said, struggling to sit up. Admail nodded approval. "That was good." "Should we call the sand back?" Japheth asked. "Better," Noctiel said. Admail asked curiously of the mammoth, "Will you, or shall I?" "Both," Noctiel was peremptory. With a light briefly bright as the sun, making them all blink, the unicorn appeared. Sandy's arm slid from around its neck, and he slipped onto the sand. A mangy mammoth tumbled beside him. Japheth explained, "I used one of my darts on him, but it's very short-lasting." Sandy's eyes blinked open, and he sat up. The three seraphim stood looking at Japheth, Sandy, and the two mammoths. "Thank you," Sandy gasped. "Oh, Jay, thank you." Embarrassed, Japheth shrugged. "What happened to you?" Sandy demanded. "You're hurt." "I'll be all right," Japheth reassured him. The seraphim has cleaned my wound." "Go home," Admail ordered. "Sandy, you can help Japheth. He is weaker than he realizes." "But what happened?" Sandy demanded. Japheth laughed. "I never thought I'd be grateful to a manticore, but I am now. They'd have killed me if the manticore hadn't pushed his way into the tent and stopped them." The mangy little mammoth pressed against Sandy. "It's all right," Sandy reassured. "We'll never send you back. What happened to them?" Japheth shrugged. "Nothing, I suspect," Acatriel said. "I saw the manticore running away, weeping, a dart falling from his forehead, calling out that he was hungry." Japheth laughed again. "I could almost feel sorry for the manticore." "Go now," Admail urged. "Japheth needs food and rest." "Unicorn?" Sandy asked. "What about you?" As he looked, the unicorn began to flicker and fade. Japheth said, "The unicorn knows we don't need it anymore." Where the unicorn had been, there was only a shimmer in the air and the scent of moonbeams and silver. And we will pause there.